said, my name is Brian Fanzo, and I'm here to talk to you a little bit about Omni-Sensory experiences. Ooh. Look at that. That was almost on cue. That was a little sensory testing there for those of you that are in the audience. So this is actually my second time in Lima. See, I have to get it right. I have to think Lima bean and then I say it correctly. But I'm excited to be here because I like talking around the world. I've actually traveled to 74 countries. I just got back from Poland 2 weeks ago. And a lot of what I talk about is change and how we can embrace something new. And really, Jessica set the stage for me on a couple different things. And even some of the examples Jessica used, I'm going to reference in this conversation. But for many of you in this room, you're a business owner. You're maybe an inspiring marketer. Maybe you're running marketing for a different business. And I know what you were thought of when you saw the title of my presentation. You were like, oh God, is he going to tell me something new to download? I mean, is he going to give me something else I need to create? Because who in here wants to create more content? A couple people. Who in here wants a new app to download? Jesus, I mean, we have enough going on, and then I get to throw in something like Omni-Sensory innovation, which really, because I'm a marketer, I get to come up with kind of crazy cool words. My philosophy, think like a fan. My last name is Fanzo, and in the marketing community, people actually thought I'd change my last name to meet my marketing philosophy. Marketers. But what I'm here to talk to you about is kind of what the change in landscape is, how we create content, what content means for us. But more than that, I want you to start thinking about how we can get to where the audience is. And I kind of represented Jessica's mantra here. We are living in this human experience. And I've been saying for a long time that for about the last 8 or 9 years, we've been using digital and social media to distance ourselves from our consumer, to get further away from those that we want to serve. And the crazy part about that is we started to realize that people don't trust a logo. People don't trust just a brand. And I can attest to this. So we did some research with IBM, and we polled a bunch of people under the age of 25, and we asked them, what does IBM do as a business? And one of the tags on the bottom of it said, is IBM still in business? So it doesn't matter how long you've been in business, it doesn't matter how cool your logo is or what you think your business is, it does come down to the human experience. And really, things have changed. I mean, how many people would love to go back to the days that we just sat on the couch and we were able to watch TV, we didn't have to follow a hashtag, we didn't have to see what someone was posting on Facebook Live, we didn't need to run to when the commercial comes on, the first thing everyone does, including my kids, my kids look at commercials as like a massive distraction. Even YouTube's, the roles on YouTube, my daughters hate YouTube ads, and I have 3 daughters just like Jessica does. But the world that we lived in for the longest time was kind of what we see here from Seinfeld, is we just kind of sat on the couch, we watched popcorn, and we enjoyed content. But we also, even, let's go a little bit before that. I mean, there was a day that we got our news from this thing that was printed the night before, and then we sat around and we read it on paper, and we didn't really care that maybe it was out of date, or it probably was out of date, no offense to anybody that works in the newspaper space. But we lived in a time where we consume things, and I remember talking to my grandfather who recently passed away, and my grandfather would always tell me, son, I love all the stuff you're doing. Grandson, this is great, but remember, in my day in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and yes, I'm a proud Pittsburgh guy, in Ohio, there you go, yeah. See, I knew there's a couple of us that are up here in enemy territory. In Pittsburgh, he always said, he's like, there was 3 places that I got my news. I got it from the newspaper, I got it from one of the 3 channels that were on my TV, and he always said one of 3 channels because there was no such thing as a remote control, and he didn't feel like getting up and actually changing the channel with the dial on the TV. And for those that raised their hand and they said, hey, I do know what a pager is, you might understand that joke. For everyone else, just Google, TV before remote control. And then the third one, he got it from his local watering hole, the local pub. And so times have definitely changed, because now this is me on one side, and I actually used a rotary phone and know what a phone was. My daughter looks at a phone and doesn't even know that it's for calling people. And that's my 8-year-old daughter there, because for her, it's about consuming content. I just drove back from Nags Head, North Carolina with my daughters on Sunday, and the entire time all I heard was they were so upset because YouTube Kids does not play when we're not on Wi-Fi. I mean, the generation that we're looking at today, the world that we're living in, we want content where we want it, when we want it, how we want it. And we have to start thinking about content in that way, and that's where this omni-sensory experience comes into play. And I mean, it's so crazy that for me, growing up, I was not a very good student in school. And I say not a very good student. Let's be real, I was not a good student at all. And I feel bad for teachers today. I've even gone back and apologized to some of the teachers in Virginia Beach to say I'm sorry for not being a good student. But my parents were smart. They had to figure out a way to motivate me. And I am a pager-wearing millennial. I'm 37. I just turned 37 last week. 37 years old. And so for me, my parents told me, they gave me one simple way to get me to do good in school. And they said, son, if every week your report card or your progress report, and yes, that's how bad I was. I had to get a weekly progress report. If your weekly progress report was a positive experience, we're going to let you stay up till 9 p.m. on Wednesday nights. Does anybody remember what was on at 9 p.m. on Wednesday nights on the late 90s? No? 90210. I'm a diehard 90210 fan. The best grades I got were my senior year in high school when they figured out how to motivate me to stay up till 9 p.m. and watch 90210. Now, when I talked to entrepreneurs and I was speaking about this exact example in front of a bunch of people under the age of 25, they were really confused. First of all, they were like, that's not the 90210 we've seen on TV because it's been upgraded. But they're like, why would you have to watch it at 9 p.m.? And why would it be on every week? Don't you just download it onto your phone and watch it wherever you want? Don't you watch the whole season all at once? See, the times have changed. Not only have they changed, but they've changed how we consume content, how we think about content, even the control that the consumer has. There is nothing more frustrating than getting a 5-second ad on YouTube. Yet we used to have to wait every week for an hour TV show that had maybe 31 minutes of programming because it had like 6 commercials in between. And the only way you could record it was you had to master the hardest technology known to man, which is a VHS recorder, right? VCR. I mean, I still can't program a VCR, but I'm doing artificial intelligence with Watson Analytics, right? So the times have changed. Not only have they changed how we create content, but where we create content. Today's generation looks at things like Netflix, look at things like Amazon Fresh. I've ordered groceries when I lived in Arizona and got them the same day via the internet. Pretty cool. Kind of crazy at the same time, but pretty cool. I mean, I took a $144 Uber from Columbus to Lima, but I got my groceries in Arizona on the same day I ordered them. But this world is on demand. We want cars where we want it. We want to use our devices. The idea of music, I remember I DJ'd at a skating rink in high school, and I loved Tuesdays because I would go down to the record store, wait for it to open because Tuesdays was a new CD day. And most of it was one-hit wonder. We had to buy the whole CD, and we only listened to one song. Today, it's like, wait, I want Taylor Swift's entire new album streamed to my phone immediately. I was so mad that Dave Matthews Band only released one song on Monday, I had to wait till Tuesday for the whole album. The world we're living in has definitely changed, and so what I want you to start thinking about is, how has this change impacted us? And I got a little fast there. And really, the main drivers of change, in my opinion, come down to 4 things. It comes down to social media. It comes down to mobility, our phone. It comes down to analytics. And then last but not least, cloud computing, which has enabled us to do a lot of things. And I believe so heartily that these are 4 major driving factors that I created even a podcast called Smack Talk, which stands for Social, Mobile, Analytics, and Cloud. Because these are the things that are changing the way we consume, changing the way we create, and even changing the way we even think about technology. And so when we move forward and we start thinking about, okay, yes, times are changing, Brian. We're talking about social media most of the time. Even Facebook is changing the way that they're doing things, right? And so Facebook has come out, and this is Mark Zuckerberg, and Mark Zuckerberg has come out and said, hey, I want you guys to realize that, not only have times changed, but we have to think of things differently, because look at all of these tools, look at all of these buzzwords. I mean, you can literally play buzzword bingo. If you wrote all of these down, I can guarantee every presentation over the next 2 days is going to include these words. The world that we live in, especially from a marketer, is overwhelmed with new ideas, new technology. Now you have to figure out how to go live on Facebook Live or Periscope, and there's this thing called Twitch that you never heard of, or Musical.ly, but apparently that's what the kids are doing. And then there's that Snapchat thing that, we still are confused why people are using Snapchat or how the interface works, and where are all the buttons? Why am I swiping? And can I just get a button that says, post? Like, where's the post button on Snapchat? It just doesn't exist. We're overwhelmed by options, and even Facebook decided to change the game this year, and Facebook came out and said, guess what, marketers? You guys have figured out how to manufacture engagement, and I use manufacture with air quotes for a reason. Every single person that went Facebook Live with a still image just to get the reach of Facebook Live has ruined live video. But what Facebook came out and said is we no longer are going to reward engagement because marketers have ruined engagement. We are going to now reward meaningful interactions. And for many in this room, this might be the first time you heard that, and you're like, oh God, what is a meaningful interaction? It's a good question. I don't think he even really explained that. But if you think of it way back into the Yahoo group days or AOL chat days or the forum days of before, what Mark and what Facebook is trying to inspire, and I use that hashtag all the time, in Zuck we trust. And yes, I trust Mark Zuckerberg even with the Facebook data drama going on. And I worked in cybersecurity for 9 years. So if you want to explain more about that, pull me aside later on. But I believe what Mark is doing, I believe what Facebook is doing is paving the way for trust, paving the way to put social back in social media. It's no longer about likes, it's no longer about engagement, it's now about how do I create a conversation? How do I create a meaningful interaction with my community? How do I, guess what, be social and build relationships? How do I be human? The reason live video is so powerful, I believe live video is the biggest disruptor to social media ever, is because you can't fake it, you can't automate it. Live video requires you to be human. And for many marketers, they hate that idea. Because we've been learning this idea that we can do email automation, we can just throw up a website and not even change our hours because if we build it, they will come. And I'll explain why that's completely broken. But now we have to start thinking and say, okay, first of all, technology's changing. We no longer have the VCR. 90210 is now downloadable all at once. I mean, my kids are addicted to Fuller House, which is like part 2 of Full House. Which, if you're a parent, it's the best TV show there is out there right now, because it's a little nostalgia with a little bit of entertainment for your kids. But when you're thinking about all this change, even Facebook has decided to change. And so one of the things that we talk about a lot is you have to disrupt or be disrupted. You have to embrace emerging technologies. You have to start thinking outside the box. Do we? Because we're still figuring out how to get people to like our stuff on Facebook. We're still figuring out why we need to blog. I mean, we went to some meeting and someone told us, content is king. And so all of a sudden we started creating content. And I'm not going to ask anybody to say this out loud, but I want you to write down right now, why do you create content? And if you don't know the answer, it's okay. Most people creating content can't figure out why they're doing it either. We've created so much noise, so much distraction, because someone just said content is king. We need to blog 5 days a week. Do we need to? Is that what our humans want that we are serving? And so when we think about this, we think about all this disruption. There's 2 things that I want you to remember. And this slide is in every deck whoa, that went way fast. This slide is in every deck that I present. I present 5 different keynotes around the world. And this is extremely important because for me, if you want to embrace the new, if you want to be successful in creating content in social media, content on your website, content as a whole in 2018 and beyond, you have to remember these 2 principles. And before we get into the first one, I'm going to ask this audience, who here knows of a brand in Lima? Oh, I got it right. Who here knows of a brand in Lima that is perfect? All right. Who here knows of a brand in the world that is perfect? Okay, so let's make it easier. Who here knows of a person, a leader, a CEO, an executive that is perfect? Well, I ask this question on every stage around the world, and I have yet to get an answer. Sometimes someone smart aleck will say Mother Teresa, and even Mother Teresa would agree that she was not perfect. So interestingly enough, nobody in this room thinks of a brand or a person as perfect, but how many of us want perfect copy, the perfect video, the perfect Facebook post, the perfect amount of hashtags on Instagram, right? If none of us in this room believe perfection is attainable, why are we trying to be perfect? If you want to use live video, you can't be perfect. The most powerful phrase on live video, Facebook Live, I've launched Facebook Live for Dell, IBM, SAP, Samsung, UFC. The most powerful phrase on live video is your ability to say, I do not know. When someone asks you a question on live video and you don't know the answer, you as a marketer have to be confident enough to say, I do not know. Because guess what happens when you say, I don't know on a live video? The people watching are like, all right, well, they're not full of crap. Or they're questioning if we're marketers, right? Because like, no marketer admits they don't know something. But then they're like, wait a second, what they do claim to know, they must actually know. And they are actually human, because I already asked this entire room, is perfection a thing? No. I actually tell people all the time that your business should have an I don't know page on your website. Because guess what it does? It adds validity to what you do know. If you're claiming to know everything and you are perfect, I already surveyed this room and none of us believe you. So why don't we take that bar down? And that's what live video has done. And the second one is that control is an illusion. And one thing I can tell you is everyone in this room, when we saw that the video didn't have sound earlier, and Jessica was a little nervous and she was getting into it, what did all of us want her to do? We just wanted it to work. We were cheering Jessica on inside. Please work. When you create video and content and you're on live video, guess what your audience wants? They want you to succeed. They understand that you're human. They understand that something might go wrong, just like what we saw on stage. And so when you think about this, when you think about this content, when you think about creating the future, when you're doing things exciting, these two things will allow you to be more innovative. They will allow you to create more content. But more importantly, they will allow you to become more human with your consumers. When I tell people your content's not very human-like, they're like, yeah, we paid a copywriter that we found online that's overseas to write it, and that person's a human. Marketers. And I say that with love. So what I want you to remember is that perfection is a fairy tale, control is an illusion, and we are entering a new reality. We have augmented reality and virtual reality. My good friend Kathy Hackle will be up here talking about that idea of augmented reality and virtual reality. I really ask all of you, if you haven't seen what the Weather Channel was doing today, check out theweatherchannel.com or go to the Weather Channel on Twitter. Don't do it right now. But the Weather Channel is actually simulating with mixed reality what a tornado would feel like if it hit the Weather Channel. They're showing you what a tornado does to a room, to a house, to an environment using mixed reality. This is the space that we are in. We are moving to a new reality, and the reason is we want to be able to be more human online. I've said it for a long time that I believe live video is the gateway to this new reality. Because if you cannot build a live video strategy today, you will never take advantage of virtual reality, augmented reality, or mixed reality. You have to embrace the fact that there's lots of variables and things happen and you are human. And this is that new Omni-Sensory experience. And what I mean by Omni-Sensory experience is that we have to create human-like experiences online. We have to stop thinking about things as the human versus the machine. We have to start thinking about it as the human and the machine. When I create content, and when we're talking about people, I say, how do we create content that everyone will enjoy? How do we create content that will be consumable by different people? Because we've all heard this before, right? Everyone learns differently, right? Have we all heard that? That's made its way to Lima, right? Everyone learns differently. Some people are visual learners, some people audio learners, some people like to read a book, some people like audible books. Some people like to read a book in paperback with a hardback copy. Some people like to read it on their Kindle, right? We all consume content differently, but guess what we as marketers do? You have to consume content our way. We like to write blogs. You have to only consume our content reading a blog on our website. Oh, you don't like to watch videos to consume content? Sorry, we only create that content in video. And this is a big change that we have to see across the board, because guess what? The old saying from this great Kevin Costner movie, and yes, I'm a millennial that knows this movie. What's the saying in the Field of Dreams? If you build it, they will come. Breaking news for everyone in this room. If you build a new website, if you launch a new Facebook, nobody is coming. Nobody. The new day and age, not only are we distracted and we have so much things going on, but we don't care about a website launch. We don't care about what technology you're all of a sudden putting in. We don't care that you switch from Aweber to MailChimp or from Infusionsoft to Salesforce. We don't care what technology that brand is using. We just want it to work. And we don't want you to take our email address and sell it off for all these different things. If you build it, nobody cares. So what do we need to do? We now need to create content in an omni way, which means if you're going to create a great video piece of content, also create it in blog form. If you're going to do a video, why not rip the audio and allow people to consume it in audio form on their drive into work? Today's consumer, we've already explained, my daughters are really frustrated with a 5-second ad on YouTube. Today's consumers want things where they want it, when they want it, how they want it. My question is, are you creating content that gives them those options? Because the field of dreams marketing is over. It is no longer the case that said, I'm just going to throw a blog on my website and all of my customers are going to read it. I mean, the last time, I'm a big Monster Energy drink fan, which is why it's up here. Jessica hooked me up with Monster. But the last time I checked, when I go in to buy a Monster, I do not need to consume any content. The guy at the 7-Eleven, when I go in and buy this, does not care if I went to the 7-Eleven website, does not care if I follow them on Twitter. I simply go in and buy it. As a consumer, I am a big fan of Monster Energy. I follow them on Instagram, but I've never been to their website. I don't even follow their Facebook page. I follow them on Twitter, but they've never replied, which is very frustrating. But when we think about it now, you have to start being able to create content that goes to where your audience is. You have to create content and put it where your audience. So we need to move away from saying content is king. Let's start creating great content and then serving it up to where our community is. And my Press the Damn Button logo is a little messed up on that. But these are the ways that I want you to start thinking about content. These are the ways I want you to start thinking about things. We need to start documenting. We need to start creating. We need to start participating in other people's communities. We have to start listening more than we talk. And we have to start learning from others. Creating content is overwhelming. And people oftentimes, if you follow me on any social channel, the question I get when I meet people offline almost every time is saying, how the hell do you do all that content? How are you on Instagram, Snapchat, Facebook? You also have 3 daughters, you run your own business, you travel 45 weeks a year. Here's the thing. I love what I do, but I'm really good at documenting things. I only create one piece of content every week. But people assume that I'm everywhere. And Brian, I listen to your podcast. I've watched your videos on YouTube. I see that you post 2 videos to LinkedIn every week. Well, I'm going to give you my secret recipe to that at the end. Because for me, it's all about figuring out what works for you and then getting that content to where your audience is. Now, Patron, I don't know if anybody's seen this, but Patron, we've all heard of Patron. It's a tequila company, right? And for many that are in this room, you're thinking, okay, well, my business might not be into augmented reality, virtual reality. I might not be a business that wants to get into this space. Because, like, why would my business, if I own a plumbing company or I own a brick and mortar boutique, what would this mean for me? Well, Patron Tequila, what they did is they created this amazing virtual reality experience to take people through what it was like creating tequila. Let's see, will it play? It should autoplay. There we go. And the neat part about this, and we're not going to watch the whole thing because I did the controls of this virtual reality experience and you'll get a little nauseous. But you actually they created this experience where you're able to watch how Patron is created from the farm into the factory, into the bottling experience, into how they put the label on the tequila. And it seems crazy innovative, right? Think about, why is a tequila company that owns 68% of the market of high-end tequila doing this? They want to give you a new experience. They want you to feel what it's like as if you were the human walking along this path. And it's a really cool, you can Google it. It's actually over 2 years old. They were doing this and they were creating this kind of content over 2 years ago. And how cool is this? Like, you actually go into the factory and all of a sudden now, oh, see, I told you, I'm looking at the ceiling because I can't control the 360 camera. There we go. All right, now we're on the belt, and we're part of the tequila experience. Now we go onto the showroom floor and show them how it's being bottled. Did anyone in here know how tequila was made before this? No. Well, maybe 1 or 2 people. I like it. We should talk tonight, right? There we go. I like that. But what they're doing is they're giving you a new experience. They're allowing you, and it even has great authentic music. You even hear the factory workers talking amongst themselves while you're watching this experience. It's allowing you to experience something in an omni way in multiple different senses, and it's really interesting. They also have a couple podcasts that they sponsor. They have a blog on their website. They have social content because for them, they don't want to make you go watch this one video. They want to allow you to consume it how you want to consume it. How many people here listen to podcasts? All right, I'd say about 30% of the room or so. So the other 70%, we need to get you guys on board. But podcasts have exploded, and it's funny because they've exploded but been around for 9 years. And the interesting thing about podcasts, I love podcasts, and I was recently being interviewed for a TV spot, and they asked me, said, Brian, if you could pick one piece of content, one way of delivering your content amongst all of the things, and you're the live video guy, what is the one way you would love to create content? And I had to think about it for a while, and I said podcasting. I think podcasting is the most intimate experience that I have with my listeners. Because the interesting thing about podcasting is I get to tell a story, I get to bring you on a journey, but you as the consumer get to paint the picture that you want to consume. Think about it. If I had your eyes closed right now and I was telling you about this amazing castle that I got to visit in Scotland, in your head you're going to paint your own picture of Scotland or your own picture of a castle. If you have kids, it's probably the Frozen castle. That ability to allow people to be creative, allow the consumer to decide what they see, how they see it, is why podcasting is so powerful. And we've heard things like Serial. Serial is a podcast that has exploded because it's a crime drama via audio. I was so addicted, I would pull into work at the time, because I didn't work for myself at the time. I would pull in and I'd be like, is it worth being late to finish this episode? That's the experience they get. Marvel Comics. Anybody Marvel Comics fan? Marvel fans? We have, all right, yeah. Marvel Comics is releasing a podcast-only series where you can listen to your favorite comics, your favorite stories, audio only. A comic book that went to the movies is now going back into your ear holes. Why is that? They want to provide omni ways for you to experience their content. They want to allow you to come on the journey. One of my good friends launched a yoga app, and there's tons of yoga apps, and they all have this massive problem where you have to try to look on this tiny screen and watch what they're doing downward dog, and then figure out how to do downward dog yourself. And then she realized, well, once you figure out what downward dog is, you don't need to see that video every time. So she created an audio-only yoga app, and that yoga app is exploding. And people were like, wait a second, I thought video was king. I mean, 81% of internet traffic will be video by 2020. Well, guess what? Video doesn't work for that yoga person that wants to be zen and wants to be in the moment. And the whole time you're staring at the person doing downward dog, wondering what yoga pants they're wearing. Omni experiences allow the consumer, the human that you want to serve, to decide how they create content. Now, one of the questions I always get is, okay, Brian, this is great, you're passionate, you're loud, you're kind of in my face, I believe you, but like, what do I create? Like, where do I start? How do I even start creating content that allows this to happen? And I give you one word, access. Today's consumers are craving access. We heard the 19 crimes, and Jessica and I did not plan this, but the 19 crimes example that Jessica explained earlier, right? And I've bought that bottle of wine. The wine isn't the best wine I've ever had, but I've bought it multiple times, just like Jessica, because I love that it gives me access to the story behind the wine bottle label. I now understand why they called it this brand. I understand what went into making that wine. There is no other bottle of wine that gives me that experience. And yes, some people will throw their hands up and say, there's some great wine websites. Guess what? When I'm drinking wine, the last thing I want to do is go run to my computer. Because I said I was a bad student, I'm also a klutz. And so wine and a laptop, not a good mix. But what 19 Crimes does is they give you access to information in an innovative way that you can't get anywhere else. What did Patron do is, Patron, now when I look at tequila, I think about the Patron factory, and I'm even looking at Cabo Wabo, which used to be my favorite tequila, and I'm like, I don't know how yours is made. I do know how Patron's made. I do know that they gave me access to their factory. I do feel a connection. I also use the Toys R Us example, which is really funny because, well, we know what happened there. They're the new Blockbuster example for all marketers. I think marketers are really glad that Toys R Us went out of business because we've been using Blockbuster as an example for like 5 years as what your business doesn't want to become. And it's kind of get old, so now we get to use Toys R Us as an example. But what I thought was really interesting is that Toys R Us allowed kids to have an augmented reality experience. And my daughters, like I said, my daughters are 8, 7, and 4. And my 8-year-old had maybe been inside of a Toys R Us 4 times. But when I saw that my daughter can play a game throughout the Toys R Us store, I thought, well, rather than clicking that button on Amazon, maybe I will go into the store. Now, it was a little bit too little, too late, but the neat part about it is my daughter, my 8-year-old, was like, I want to go to Toys R Us, Daddy. I was like, aw, I remember saying that when I was little. Can you now say that you want commercials back in your teeth? No, they're not going to say that. This word access is king, and this access is essential because this is what I firmly believe, and I think we all can agree, the world needs more empathy. We as a society, as humans, crave and need more empathy. And I believe virtual reality and augmented reality are the empathy platforms of the future. And you might be thinking, what are you talking about, Brian? How is putting on a headset, and Kathy was in the back room earlier today. If you guys watch my Instagram stories, I snuck up on her while she was in a virtual reality scenario. But how does that happen? And I can tell you, the perfect example happened to me at South by Southwest 2 years ago, is I went into the Dell booth, and Dell had their big virtual reality thing, and I was like, cool, I'm gonna sit next to this cool guy named Brian Kramer. He spells his name wrong, but I'm gonna sit next to him, even though his name's spelled with a Y, not an I. And I'm gonna sit down, we're gonna put these headsets on. And Brian and I did, we're like, of course, because we're social media geeks, we gave our phones to people and said, video us doing this cool virtual reality. And really the only reason we were doing it was, well, one, Dell was paying us to be there, transparency. 2 was because we just wanted it to be great social content. And we put on this headset, and we were sitting in these giant chairs, and Brian was holding my hand. We'll get into that later. And what the experience was we got to swim with dolphins. We got to swim across the water and experience pollution. We got to feel oil coming down. And all of a sudden, as we were swimming with the whales, our arms got heavy because the wind of the virtual reality machine started blowing heavy. And our arms were heavy. And all of a sudden, it tells you to look up, but you can't look up anymore because you have one of those 6-ring pack of beer things around your neck as a fish. And then we swim to the top of the water, and we can't get our head out of the water because there's so much oil on the top of the water. Now, I'm not an environmentalist. I surfed through high school, love the ocean, but I am not one that would say, hey, I'm gonna donate to save the ocean. When I took off that headset, Brian and I both did, we were like, where do we donate to help this cause? How can we be a part of fixing this and stopping ocean pollution? Because we felt it. It was empathy. We were able to walk or swim in the shoes of animals that are suffering from this massive problem that we have, this epidemic in the world today. Virtual reality and augmented reality, they're coming. They're coming faster than I even would have guessed, and I'm on the bleeding edge. I want someone to install a Spanish-speaking chip in my arm so that when I travel to countries that I don't speak, I struggle with English as a whole, so I want to be able to put a chip in my arm so that I can learn another language. When I was in Poland, that would have really helped because I was trying to explain I wanted a monster, and even Google Translate wasn't helping me out there. But we need more empathy in the world, and virtual reality, augmented reality are the answer. But what I want you to think about, and what this really means, is we need to start using digital and social media to shrink the distance between ourselves and our consumer, because here's the thing. We cannot swim with the dolphins, we cannot walk in our consumer's shoes if we don't understand our consumer. If we are not human like our consumer, how can we create a more human experience? When I work with executives, especially CEOs of Fortune 500 companies, one of the most frustrating things for me is that most of them don't understand what their consumers' pain points are. They don't understand what things are going on. And for many of us in this room, when we think about all these examples, we are overwhelmed. And you're like, Brian, just please give me the any key. Just please, just give me the secret weapon. And I don't have a secret weapon for you. I do believe you have to start creating content in omni ways. We have to start thinking outside the box. We need to start thinking, what new ways can we make things happen? But what I want you guys to do, and I tweeted this out, I'll make sure that everybody gets it. I know it's a little hard to read on the screen. But this is my secret example of how I create omni-sensory content every single Monday. So every Monday at 4 p.m. Eastern time, I go live on Facebook Live on my podcast. It's called FOMO Fans, which stands for the fear of missing out. My job is to cure your fear of missing out. And for 35 minutes, you get to hear me talk into a microphone on a camera, and yes, people watch that. Not really still sure why. Most of the time, I think they put me on a second tab and consume it. But what I do with that 35 minutes of video content is I download the video. I rip out the audio, I upload it to a podcast stream, and it pushes out that to 81 podcasting apps now have that audio that I just created. I take my favorite 2-minute and 20-second clip from that video, I cut it up, I post it on Twitter as a Twitter video promoting my podcast. I take my favorite 1-minute clip, I post it on Instagram as an Instagram video telling people that there's a new podcast out there. I take my favorite 5-minute clip, I put it up on LinkedIn natively as a video and let people know on LinkedIn, hey, here's a clip that you might enjoy. If you want to watch more of it, go download my podcast. I take it to I upload that exact same audio to a tool called Remy, and Remy actually gives me my transcript of everything I said, and I talk really fast, so it's not really great transcript. But it gives me a transcript. I turn that transcript into a blog post. That blog post goes up the very next day. I then take all the best 4 episodes of that month, and I get 4 clips, and I turn it into an infographic. The infographic goes on Pinterest. I take one 35-minute piece of content that I create live on Facebook Live, and I turn it into 11 pieces of content. One 35-minute piece of content. Now you might be wondering, man, Brian, you have a massive team. I know, how many people do you hire? I do that all myself. Every one of those steps, every one of those posts, every one of those things come from me. So for everyone in their head is saying you can't do it, I promise you can. And I use tools like iMovie and GarageBand. They are free if you are a Mac user. What I'm telling you is that if you want to create omni-sensory experiences, if you want to connect with your consumer where they are at, if you agree with me that the field of dreams marketing is over, we need to start creating great content and getting it to where our audience is. Now, I will tell you, for most people in this room, I call that upcycling, but for most people in this room, one of the biggest problems is that you get inspired. And I'm the opening session today, and I'm very excited. This is my last slide, because I'm excited for everyone to be here. 2 days in Lima, and we have some of my favorite speakers in the world have traveled all the way here to Lima. And I say all the way as if it's like a foreign country. But here's the interesting part is, why are these speakers here? Why are these, I travel the world, we speak on all these stages around the world. Why are they here? Because the person that runs this conference practices what she preaches. Jessica builds relationships better than anyone I know in the entire space. When she told me a couple months ago that she wanted me to come up and talk to some speakers, to some students up here, I said, yes, please. Because she is a human that relates with people. She builds connections. She might be a marketer, but what she does really well is she is not afraid to press the button. She is not afraid to create content. She's not afraid to make an ask. So what I challenge you to do right now, everyone in this room, for the next 2 days, take lots of notes, learn lots of things, but do me one favor. Do not show up here next year and tell Jessica, I loved your event. You inspired me. I took so many notes. I just didn't do anything, but I was so inspired because I went back and I got overwhelmed, and I'm here this year because I'm going to learn. What I challenge you to do is take notes, listen and learn, take little bits and pieces, but press the damn button. Execute. All of this stuff is amazing, but if you do not do what people are talking about on this stage, you will never move forward. I've built live video strategies that have taken 6 months, and as soon as we pressed the button on IBM, the brand manager looked over my shoulder and said, damn, Brian, that is pretty easy, huh? We just pressed the button. 6 months, 13 legal phone calls, just to press the button. I challenge you to listen, to learn, to educate others, and then press the damn button. My name is Brian Fanzo. Thank you, guys.